If you're in America's western snow-capped regions and you hear a sudden crack that echoes through the mountains, it might not be thunder. If that crack continues at periodic intervals for close to an hour, you may be listening to a clash of titans. No, it's not Greek deities battling atop Olympus. It's two rival sheep showing each other what they're made of, in a test of strength and endurance. But sometimes victory means using your head in life, death, and taxonomy. Welcome back to Life, Death, and Taxonomy. It's your 30 minutes of interesting animal information. I'm Joe.
And I'm Carlos.
Thank you to Cassie for the creation of our theme song. To hear more of Cassie's music, search Cassie Michelle on YouTube.
And thank you to Brian for this week's episode art. To see it, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter or visit us at ldtaxonomy.com.
And today we're talking about the mountain lamb that the Lord provided. Literally, just because it's a wild sheep.
The mountain ram. It was a ram, right?
Was it a ram?
Yeah, I think it was a ram. It had his horns caught in the thicket on Mount Moriah.
But yeah, what are we talking about?
We're talking about the Bighorn sheep. Basically,
It wasn't this particular sheep, though, because Bighorn sheep were not on Mount Moriah.
No. But there's probably some variant of ram that was sacrificed a lot. But we're going to call it here a go ram sheep in sheep's clothing. That's stupid. Sorry, I just found out that Firefly is on Hulu, and I've just been taking a walk down memory lane. But it's just really weird to have them say things like "go ram" and speak in Mandarin.
More like "ba ram you."
Yeah.
Sheep be true.
Oh, I should have gone with that. Custer's Bane is another one, because the little bighorn. And the last one is Nature's Bop It. It's Bighorn sheep. Nature's Bop It.
Good.
Let's taxonomize this sheep. Also, whenever I think of sheep, I think of it's Evan Almighty, that movie with Steve Carell where he becomes Noah, and he sits in his car and he turns around and there's a bunch of sheep in the back seat, and he just screams sheep at the top of his lungs. And
you know
it's
that
really funny.
That movie is almost identical to the plot of a movie with Tony Danza.
No.
Where it's a modern day Noah, and he has to build an ark in the modern day.
I did not know there was a Tony Danza, Noah, and the Great Ark movie.
The plots are exactly the same almost, except for there's no Morgan Freeman.
Automatically not as good. But yes, let's taxonomize bighorn sheep. It's in a kingdom love and are in. It is the kingdom Animalia. The phylum is Chordata. Class is Mammalia. This is one of Joe's animals, so it's a good chance we're in Mammalia. The order is Artiodactyla. So that is odd-toed ungulates, I think. No, that's even-toed ungulates.
Mm-hmm. Like giraffe and buffalo.
And humpback whales. We always say that.
Yeah, that's true. And killer whales.
I was... this is so off topic. I was playing a mod of a Pokemon game, and I walked up to this guy, and he's like, "Hi there, would you like to buy an ungulate?" I was like, "What?" And so I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he sold me a Rapidash. I was like, "Yep, you got it. There's an ungulate. You did it." It's a flaming horse.
Flaming Moltres.
The family is Bovidae, because believe it or not, sheep, goats, rams, they're all bovines, grazers. The subfamily is Caprinae, which when I first saw that, I was like, oh, it's like a goat. But no, the genus is different, because for goats, the genus is Capra. But for sheep, the genus is Ovis. And then the species is Canadensis. Ovis canadensis. So Canadian egg. I didn't look it up. But since we're in the business of naming things, it's time for my favorite part of the show, critter groups. The part of the show where I ask you, Joe, a question, and that question is the same every time. What is the name of a group of this animal, or what is the collective noun, or what is the term of venery? It's all the same thing. If you saw a bunch of bighorn sheep hanging out, there is actually one for them. Would you say A, that's a herd of bighorn sheep, B, a churl of bighorn sheep, C, a field of bighorn sheep, or D, a graze of bighorn sheep?
Say it's a churl. Sounds like curl.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
That is incorrect. The answer is herd. It's super boring.
When you said there is one for them, I assumed it would be unique to them.
Yeah, I typed in bighorn sheep and it's like, this is the one for bighorn sheep. But I think there might be
It's
others.
a herd.
Yep, it's just a standard livestock group. Churl, I don't know why I even thought of that. But then I looked it up and it just means like a peasant. So.
Huh. Well, the field didn't seem right because they're mountain sheep. So, like, I'm sure they do stand in fields, but they're not associated with fields. And what was the last one you said?
Graze, 2 on the nose.
Graze was a little it's plausible, but a little too plausible.
But sheep usually come in flocks, oddly enough.
That's true.
So that was why it was unique. I don't know why they come in flocks, but they do. They're flocking this way. I think I said that joke last time. It's not even a joke. Let's describe them. What do these guys look like? Well, they're classified as sheep, but they actually really do look a lot like goats. The females and young in particular.
They look like sheep in the face. They have that cute little like reindeer nose.
Yeah, they're just not covered in that thick wool that a sheep is. They're like heads go up instead of out. Like a sheep, when it's just standing there, it kind of just goes straight out. But like goats kind of have their necks, like they elevate their heads, and so do bighorn sheep.
And then females do look like goats
because
they have goat-like horns.
Like tiny horns. You'd be forgiven for thinking that, seeing a bighorn sheep and assuming it was a goat. I mean, at least I'd forgive you. I don't know about Joe. He may hold that against you for years to come. He definitely is bears a goat grudge. The bighorn sheep has short wool or fur. I think it's still wool. As I mentioned, so they're not big and fluffy.
I mean, good, because if you don't shear a sheep, they become overcome.
They become
with their own wool.
One big nasty tangle
it's
of
not good for them.
Wool, yeah.
So if you have a wild sheep, you just can't have that issue.
They're just so domesticated that there's no way for them to live without being shorn every once in a while. The bighorn sheep has a brownish gray coat and a streak of white on its tush, its legs, and its snoot. Outside of that, the main distinguishing feature are the eponymous bighorns that the males have. They're large and curved. They stem from just above their eyes on their head, and they swirl all the way around the ears and come to a sharp point alongside their snouts facing forward. It's very formidable. So that brings us to... I guess we go straight on to fast facts. That sounds good to me.
There's one more thing. We have to talk about their relative size.
Bigger than a bread box.
It is. Welcome. Everyone knows what a bread box is.
Uh-huh.
It's a box you keep your bread. We've had an ant problem lately, and we could use a bread box at this point.
We keep our bread in the freezer.
Microwave. Oh, yeah, the freezer. Our freezer's kind of like full right now.
Oh, boo-hoo.
We had our wedding cake box, like the top of our wedding cake, in there. But it was nasty.
Yeah, you guys got married a long time ago. That wedding cake should
No,
be
you're supposed
gone.
to keep it in the freezer for a year, and then that's a tradition, we heard.
What kind of tradition?
You freeze a cake and it'll last forever. But
sure.
It was not good post-frozen, so we got rid of it.
I've never heard of this wedding tradition before. We ate all the cake at ours immediately. Anyway.
Yeah. Welcome to the Love Measure Up segment, the official listener's favorite part of the show. The part of the show when we present the animal size and dimensions in relatable terms through a quiz that's fun for the whole family. It's also part of the show that's introduced by you when you send an audio of yourself saying, singing, or chittering the words Measure Up into ldtaxonomy@gmail.com. We don't have a new Measure Up intro this week. It's been a while, and we had quite a listener spike, and none of these new boys and girls are sending in Measure Ups.
All you have to do is go to your phone, click the voice memo app, say Measure Up into that, click stop recording, click the little square with the arrow, email to ldtaxonomy@gmail.com, and title it Measure Up. You're done. Takes less than a minute.
It does.
We'd love to hear from you.
Unless you want to put like the work into it that Brian does and make an anime, of audio anime.
We've had several really produced ones with a lot of work put into them, which is welcome but not necessary. We just want to hear your voice, listeners.
So you know what that means. When we don't have a new Measure Up intro, we get to hear from an animal, and Carlos has to guess what it is. It's in his contract.
Maybe people really like this game, and that's why they're purposely not sending it in. Let us know if you like this game. We just want to hear from you, really.
Send us a tweet or an email.
ldtaxonomy@gmail.com.
But without further ado, the listener's favorite part of the show.
I don't like it.
Okay, so there's some of those sounds were camera shutter, but I think you heard all the monster sounds were from an animal.
My ears are violated.
Was that A, bighorn sheep, B, a pronghorn, which is another small, fast, deer-like thing that lives in America? Is it an impala, which lives in Africa, or a springbok, which I think also lives in Africa?
It does live in Africa. It's like a little impala. A little antelope. All right. I really don't know what to go with this. It sounded like a warthog. Goodness. I'm going to go with bighorn sheep. I think that's the sound they make.
Bighorn sheep?
Uh-huh.
Final answer?
Yes.
The correct answer was impala.
Really?
Yeah, it looked like he was throwing up, but it wasn't throwing up. It was like dry heaving.
Sounded like it was throwing up.
That was probably some sweet romantic poetry.
Yeah, it was definitely a beautiful courting song.
Okay, let's get into the length of a typical male. They're between 1.6 and 1.85 meters, or 63.73 inches long. How many bighorn go into the height of Mount Elbert in Colorado?
I don't know anything about Mount Elbert.
Well, let me give you some hints. Mount Elbert is Colorado's highest peak, and it's the second highest peak in the United States mainland. It's second to Mount Whitney in California. It's 14th overall in the U.S. Do you know where the rest of those mountains are?
Alaska.
Alaska's got 12 of the tallest mountains. The top 12.
Yeah, I was gonna say
12 of the
no
top
way it's
14.
taller than Mount McKinley, or sorry, what do they call it now? They just renamed a park and mountain up there back to the native.
Oh, Denali.
Denali, that's what it was. I'm bad with mountains. I don't think I've ever gotten close with a mountain question. I can go with 20,000 feet. 3,428.
Sheep. Final answer?
Yep.
Correct answer was 2,373.6.
Oh, this is a tiny mountain.
The mountain is 14,440 feet.
Pipsqueak.
Or 404.
Small fry.
4,400 meters. Okay, let's talk
That's
about
why I have never heard of it.
So let's talk male weight. They're between 58 to 143 kilograms, or 128 to 315 pounds.
Although
How many?
the ones that live in the Rockies can get up to 500 pounds.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I think that's a different subspecies.
The Rockies?
Yeah, there's three. I'll go into the three. Part of my fast facts is that there's three different subspecies, and the Rocky Mountain subspecies is one, and they're the biggest.
True. These can go all the way down to Mexico. Did you know that?
The Sierra Nevada ones?
Yeah. How many bighorns go into the combined weight of the largest gathering of people dressed in gorilla costumes? Assuming every single one of those people is the average American weight.
All right. Tell me about that.
Here's a hint.
I'll bite.
I chose it because it's a Colorado world record, and bighorn sheep are like a big animal mascot for Colorado. Colorado holds this record for the Denver Gorilla Run, which was a 5K race, which was organized by the Mountain Gorilla Conservation Fund.
That sounds really dangerous to run a race dressed in a gorilla. It must have been chilly.
Chilly, yeah.
I forgot it gets chilly over there. Can't do that in Florida. Can't dress up as a skunk ape and run a 5K. You'll die. Wow. The combined weight. 500 people's a lot. And the average weight of a person, we've talked about this. I think for guys it's like it was lower than I thought. It was like 145.
This is the American average.
Oh.
It's probably not the average of American runners, though. It's probably heavier than that.
Yeah. I guess I'll go 175. We'll go up a little bit since it is America. So I'll say 175. 277. Just ballparking it.
277.
Guessing there's 500 people in this race. The average weight is 175 pounds.
The correct answer.
There's so many variables here. I could be wrong on the number of people in the race. I could be wrong on the average weight of the...
So did you give the final answer?
Yeah, 277.
Okay, so the correct answer is 619.
Oh, there were a lot of people in this race.
1,061 recorded participants at an average of 184 pounds, equaling 195,224 pounds.
Yeah, that'll do it. I only got to 87,000 pounds.
It might be a little closer to your estimated weight, at least, because this is the American average, which includes people that would never run a 5K race. So the average of 5K racers is probably much lower.
Yeah, I would probably, if it was just 5K racers.
But I looked up the average weights of men and women and then averaged that. So it's definitely heavier than the runners of this race.
Although a 5K is not that long, so it's not like they'll have to be marathon runners that
they're
weigh
probably
115
not,
pounds.
They don't need to be like all peak condition runners, but they're probably lighter than the average group of 1,000 people. But yeah, that's all I got for that. Do you have any fast facts?
I do. Like I alluded to earlier, there are 3 different subspecies of the bighorn sheep. The Rocky Mountain version, that's huge and gets up to 500 pounds. The Sierra Nevada version, which is what I think we'll be talking about. And then there's the desert variety, subspecies, whatever. They, like all bovines, like to graze. They eat grasses and plants and sedges. They are a crucial part of the food chain because they get eaten a lot. They have to keep an eye out for coyotes, bobcats, foxes, wolverines, jaguars, ocelots, lynxes, eagles, bears, wolves, and mountain lions. Because they actually cover a pretty wide range with a lot of different ecosystems. Because they can live all the way, like their southernmost point is like down in Baja California, so that Mexican peninsula on the western side, all the way up to British Columbia in Canada. So they kind of, and all the way like to if you could draw a line exactly through the middle of the United States, like that's where they live on the western side of that. If there was a Mason-Dixon line for the East and West, they would live on the west side of that. They love rocky, mountainous regions. But they not only do they have to keep an eye out for these predators, they can also easily catch pneumonia from domestic sheep, even if those sheep don't have any symptoms. So there are a lot of situations where they intermingle with domestic sheep, and then they end up getting pneumonia, which kills upwards of 90% of a herd of bighorns. So they are under threat from that disease alone. They also have an interesting courting tactics. They have one of 3 strategies that will win fair lady's heart. The first is tending, which is just stalking and following a female. A female is called a ewe, by the way. EWE, which is another EWE. That's another George of the Jungle reference. The second is coursing. So if a male sees a female that is already being tended to by another male, they'll fight off the tending male. Although apparently that's not very effective, so I'm surprised it's still something they do. And the last one is blocking, which is just preventing her from going into places where there are tending males that might tend to her. So it's being abusive all around, really. And lastly, I'll throw in a little kind of culture reference, not pop culture, just culture in general. There is an Apsaloka tribal legend, which is the Crow Native Americans, that the legend goes that a man was rescued by a herd of bighorn sheep after his demon-possessed dad pushed him off a cliff. And the victim man called himself Big Metal and became the leader of the sheep, who bestowed upon him supernatural strength, wisdom, sharp eyes, and ears, and sure-footedness, like the sheep. And he went back to his people and became a leader there too. To bring it all around, the Crow people, they assisted the U.S. during the Battle of the Little Bighorn in Montana. So Bighorn has at least the name has a lot of significance.
Is it named after a small bighorn sheep?
No, it's named after a river that's called the Little Bighorn.
Gotcha. Is the river named after a small bighorn sheep?
The river is named because in the legend I just mentioned, where Big Metal got supernatural powers from the sheep that saved him from a demon-possessed father, when he returned to the Crow people, he said that they would prosper as long as the river that flowed from the mountains was called the Bighorn River. So maybe a tributary is called the Little Bighorn, and that's where Custard basically committed suicide.
Tubby Custard?
Yeah, delicious Colonel Tubby Custard. Lieutenant Colonel Tubby Custard. And that's all I got.
Okie dokie.
You give us a fact that's major. Not so fast.
All right. Bighorns can deliver a headbutt at 35 miles per hour with enough power to instantly kill a human being.
That sounds about right.
Did you know this?
35 miles per hour? Yeesh.
We're going to get into some math and physics, and I don't understand it. But here we go. The impact of 2 males butting heads can be heard from a mile away. In fact, the impact generated by 2 sparring bighorns is the most force created by any sheep species. It's estimated that they can generate 3,400 newtons of force in a single blow. So that's around 764 pounds. The force that bighorn sheep, it's 764 pounds that a bighorn sheep can take to the skull for hours, because sparring matches between males can last an hour or more. So estimates suggest that it could take around 551 pounds of force to break the human skull. So sorry, Game of Thrones fans, the mountain couldn't really do that. but mountaineering bighorn sheep could.
Does he do that? Does he win a headbutt contest with
No,
a
not
sheep?
not with a headbutt, but he crushes a human skull.
Oh, well, he's like supernaturally strong, so
Yeah,
I thought I thought you were saying there's an episode where he gets into a headbutt match with a bighorn sheep and wins.
he's supernaturally strong, but only de facto. The story just describes him as big. Like, he's just a big, strong man. He's not a magic man.
I guess. I don't know. If you're that big.
And based on, they found out, like, based on what, they say he's like 450 pounds or something. And it's just shy of what you would need to crush a human skull. But anyway, bighorns can do it. Bighorns have large, thick horns on the top of their heads. These are distinct from antlers, which are 100% made of bone. But horns they have keratin that surround a bony core. So there's bone in the middle of those horns, but the outside is all this keratin sheath.
Correct.
Which is the same thing that your fingernails,
And
hair, rhino horns, all made of that.
I think that's the definition of a horn, is it being made of keratin. And the definition of antler is bone.
But there are bones in the inside of a bighorn horn. So these also antlers fall off and regrow regularly, but bighorn horns stick around their whole lives.
Yeah, you'd think that if it was made of keratin, it would fall off. It would be more like temporary. And if it was made of bone, it would be there forever. But it's the other way around.
But yeah, I mean, again, bighorn horns, bone and keratin attached to the skull, and antlers are just bone. So these horns connect directly to the skull, and there's a thick layer of skull at the base of each horn. And this skull base also has holes in it in a honeycomb pattern, which might sound like it makes it less durable, but it actually allows their skull to absorb more impact than solid bone. Even solid bone is porous, but these are bigger holes that they're kind of like crumple zones, although they don't, like a car's crumple zone, which damages it but protects the driver. But these can withstand impact.
It's directed
and not
damage.
be ruined. Yeah.
Well, bones have to be like that. They have to bend and not break to a certain degree.
Yes, especially when you're slamming them against other bones
For hours.
Keratin. Yeah. So
At
these
35
horns,
miles an hour.
the proteins that form the keratin sheath on their horns grow faster on the outward forward-facing edge than on the inside of the spiral. So, it's useful for creating an extra padding and replacement of material in the impact zone, but it also gives the horn a signature curl. Same thing happens to your fingernails, because your fingernails produce more proteins in one area than others. Your fingernails will curl if you let them grow super long. And you can see this in like Guinness books of like longest nails.
Oh, that's nasty.
It is very unsavory to look at.
I wonder.
But when you gotta get a record, you gotta get a record.
Yeah, sure. Again, it's not worth it.
So these big horns can grow to be 40 pounds on a full-grown male. Imagine like a 40-pound helmet.
Crown that was like glued to my head.
We went hiking with like 40-50 pound packs, and that was the worst ever. Imagine that's being on your head. Well, it was like not. It wasn't optimized. They say that it should be less than that for hiking.
And then just tape it to your head.
Tape it just to your head. Not good. So the closest things humans come to experiencing this is NFL football players. So big hits in the NFL can potentially reach up to 970 pounds of force, which I don't understand how they calculated this. this seems way too high. Because if a bighorn, which weighs
315 pounds.
315 pounds and runs at 40 miles an hour or 35 miles
an hour. That's like if you crossed Usain Bolt with a linebacker. And
so I think I know why. I think the 764 pounds of force that they calculated for the sheep was an actual study of practical pounds of force generated by sheep in a specific concentrated area like the head. So it's that's going to the skull. That's what the skull is taking, 764 pounds. The football thing is they calculated a tackle, an offensive tackle, who was like 300 and something or other pounds and runs an under 5 second 40. So like really fast. Obviously not 35 miles an hour, but fast for his size for a human. And so that's it. That's how much force his whole body would produce if it hit you.
I see.
Those pounds of force are spread through their whole body, and they're mitigated by padding and falling over. So when a full speed head to head doesn't usually happen in the NFL. It sometimes does, and you can hear it, and it's like gnarly. But usually there's tackles, and like you're knocking someone over. People are trying to avoid that because it's usually a ball carrier who doesn't want to be tackled. So you compare that to a bighorn who's taking that directly to the head, and there's no give. If you watch them do this, it's just head to head. No one moves. That's like insane. So football players that experience something like this have concussions, lifelong injuries, brain injuries. But bighorns do this their whole lives, and for hours on certain days. So
we just need thicker skulls, really,
and
also spinal injuries. If your spine is aligned the wrong way when you get hit, it could paralyze you, or at least damage your nerves. Crack some vertebra.
That's all I got. But like, it is funny to think that like an NFL football player is generating more force than a bighorn sheep, but that's not accurate.
So have they killed a lot of people? Not football players, bighorn sheep.
They're actually pretty like. I'm sure if you really made one mad, they would fight you. But they don't like being around people. So if you get too close, they're more likely to run away. It's like a deer. A buck can mess you up with its like antlers, but they're more likely to run away.
Yeah, you just imagine a ram being as aggressive as it looks.
I watched. Like if you've seen videos of goats that just start headbutting people for no reason. But that's just people spend a lot more time with goats than they do with bighorn sheep.
True.
So there's more videos of that, and goats are more used to people than bighorn sheep, and bighorn sheep butt for a very specific reason. Like I don't know if like a person would trigger that in them, unless they're like it's a self-defense thing, and they're backed up against a corner. But I was watching a National Geographic special where they were like, what would be the big, like Africa's big five? What's America's big five? North America. And bighorn sheep was like, they were like talking about them. And they have the like physical prowess and the like strength, and they can do damage, but they lost points on just the skittishness of them.
All of North America, not just the U.S.?
Yeah, what do you mean? Yeah.
So all of the predators I just mentioned wouldn't go into the big five?
No. They do. There are. I forget what they it was a list of a bunch of animals that they were talking about and rating.
Yeah,
And then
I feel like bears, wolves, mountain lions, jaguars.
yeah,
Right there is your top 4.
well, I think I don't remember which ones they chose for the top 5, but the bighorn sheep was one they talked about. I don't know if they decided it would be a top 5. I lost interest in it once they were rating. I just wanted to hear about animals, and they were like, "All right, now let's talk about where they line up." And I don't care.
Yeah, I guess
but
I can't really think of a 5th one. Bears, wolves, mountain lions, and jaguars.
a buffalo, bison.
Oh yes, bison. Yeah, there you go.
Bison are massive, and they're like grumpy gills if you get too close.
Yeah, just listen to our bison episode from like a 4th of July. I think it was the first 4th of July we did this show, right?
Bison.
I
don't remember.
Isn't bison like a Street Fighter enemy?
M. Bison.
M. Bison. Odd name. All right, you got anything else?
That's all I got.
All right, that was the Bighorn sheep. So, for you out there in Podcastia, stick together. Keep an eye out for predators. And keep your head down when defending your territory like the Bighorn sheep here in Life, Death, and Taxonomy.
Hey, Taxonomy Titans, thanks for listening to the episode. Just a few quick things. As always, reviews and social media engagement are greatly appreciated, but recommending the podcast to friends is the best way to help us grow. If you'd like some LDT flavored merch, check out teespring.com/stores/taxonomytees. That's it. Thanks for listening all the way to the end.
Life, Death, and Taxonomy is my favorite in the world podcast.
Never go head to head with a bighorn. They look muscular.
Yeah, they're pretty stout.
They're like if a regular sheep is a Victorian lady in a dress, the bighorn sheep is like a cowboy in the West. You know, rugged.